Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I rise today to speak against the government's Net Zero Economy Authority bill. In doing so, can I make this point? By virtue of even bringing this bill forward, the Albanese Labor government is conceding that the pathway it is venturing down to achieve net zero for Australia is going to leave regional communities which have experience hosting coal-fired power stations in particular with dire hope for the future, very little hope for the future whatsoever. I will get, Deputy Speaker, in a moment to those areas of the bill with which I have a specific problem. But I want to make a broader point up front first, and that is, despite lots of argy-bargy and hot debate on issues of climate change and energy in this country, there is bipartisanship when it comes to achieving the goal of net zero by 2050. But that bipartisanship does not translate into an agreement on the pathway the nation must take to achieve net zero by 2050. The pathway Labor is venturing down are already creating consequences felt by all Australians. We know that Australians today are paying among the highest electricity prices in the world, certainly the highest in our country's history. There was a day, Deputy Speaker, when Australia paid among the lowest prices for electricity in all advanced economies. But today we pay among the highest. Since Labor has come to office, we have seen on a weekly basis, on average over 500 families signing up for hardship arrangements with their energy retailer. Again, another consequence of Labor's mismanagement of its transition to net zero by 2050, felt by everyday households right across this country. That is a direct consequence. We are also seeing around the country fear about the prospect of blackouts. We now have the Australian Energy Market Operator saying that we could see as soon as this coming summer, and certainly by next winter, lights going out because of the mismanagement of the electricity grid. Now, why is all of this happening, Deputy Speaker? It is happening because of the pathway chosen by the Albanese Labor government, which is creating real-world problems as we speak today. It is why regional economies, regional communities are screaming out because they are seeing projects being built without any consultation, without any engagement. They are seeing their way of life and their livelihoods threatened because they are dealing with a government that has set arbitrary targets, including the 82% renewables by 2030, without having given consideration for the impact of regional communities. And this pain, whether it be economic or social or indeed environmental, especially given the scale of the rollout being pushed by the Albanese government, is being felt today. And this brings me, Deputy Speaker, to the point of this very bill. Under Labor's policies, we are going to see 90% of Australia's baseload power, that is 90% of always-on 24/7 power in this country, exiting the grid within a decade, gone, without any chance of a replacement being there in time. Now, where do the generators that create such energy lie, Deputy Speaker? They lie in regional communities which have hosted coal-fired power stations. And this bill is a concession on the part of Labor that no communities in this country are going to hurt more and be punished more for Labor's trajectory to net zero than those communities. This is effectively Labor putting up the white flag, saying we've run out of ideas. This is Labor saying we know full well If you are a regional community with high energy IQ, you get this stuff, your workforces have worked in these assets for generations. Labor is saying, we have no plan for you. And they are saying that and putting up a bill in this parliament, not empowering those communities to make the decision about their futures, but instead empowering bureaucrats. This is not a community-centred approach. This is a Canberra-centred approach. This is quintessential Labor policy. Big government, big unions, big bureaucrats, with no consideration for what happens on the ground. At what point will Labor put the communities that are most affected by their ill-thought-through policy at the centre? They're not. And so what we see in this bill is a concession from Labor. These communities have dire futures ahead of them, and Labor's best thinking, their greatest minds, after 2 years, their solution for these communities is Canberra will tell you what to do. That's it. Canberra will tell you what to do. Latrobe, Hunter, this is what Labor's saying. Labor is saying to the people of the Hunter, they do not trust you to power your own future. Labor is saying to the people of Latrobe, Canberra will decide your fate. How confident now do you feel? This is a government that has proven it has no concept of the importance of 24/7 power. They are dealing with communities that have for generations powered this nation, literally. They are closing down these baseload power stations without any chance of a system being ready to go. And they know by virtue of this bill that those communities are going to be smashed in the process. And the best they can do is create the notion of something else in Canberra, another bureaucracy. A bureaucracy that actually does the same thing by way of mandate of existing agencies. There's a clear overlap with the CEFC, with ARENA. There are state bodies that do these sorts of things already. But that's all right. These guys, the Albanese government, they're going to put in $1.1 billion. Guess where that goes? Canberra. Canberra. The bureaucrats. That's what this is all about. And the unions have been calling for this for years. Big government, big unions. That's what this approach is. Now, it is fair, Deputy Speaker, if somebody were to say, well, why shouldn't the federal government at least learn the lessons from states that have had similar authorities in place for some years? Well, those authorities at the state level that have sought to do the same sort of thing in these same communities, they've come up with great ideas such as swimming pools, mountain bike trails. I mean, you are talking about hundreds of workers, highly qualified workers, who have the ability to run power stations. And the best this government can come up with is to replicate a process already done at the state level, whose best ideas are swimming pools and mountain bike trails. I mean, seriously. We have some of our greatest minds in these regions. And the vision of the Albanese Labor government is to give Canberra more money so Canberra can decide their future. In the senior leadership team, including the Prime Minister, the Treasurer and the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, not a day of work between them, lifetime politicians who live and breathe this building, who haven't got a clue what it's like to get your hands dirty, to have a crack at a trade. These are the people who are going to be making the decision together with the unions. And as we've seen at the state level, I tell you this, we will see former Labor Party hacks filling the jobs, the roles in this authority on the ground. That's the experience we've seen where this has been in place, including in Latrobe. Former Labor Party hacks getting jobs. This won't be delivering jobs for the coal plant workers. This will not honour their occupation, their family, their multi-generational contribution to their community. This honours the Labor Party. This honours the unions. This honours Canberra. This is about big government. And it is done knowing full well that those communities are the ones who will be hurt, Deputy Speaker. These are the communities who right now are keeping these lights on in this chamber today. They're the ones who are keeping the TVs on at home. 90% of our 24/7 power will be gone within 10 years. And where is this government working on the ground with these communities to ensure that their economies continue to drive for the future? They're not doing that. There's nothing in this bill for that. This bill empowers the unions, the Fair Work Commission. It empowers the Labor Party. This is a bill for Labor and for its masters. It's yet another dirty dividend to the union movement, done at the complete rejection of the very communities that this bill makes clear are going to be most hurt by their pathway to net zero. Now, in due course, Deputy Speaker, we will put forward our pathway to net zero as a coalition. And it is a pathway that will absolutely honour communities, especially regional communities, ones that will be a pathway that will be consumer-centred when it comes to its planning and design, and when it comes to social licence will be community-centred. And for these reasons, Deputy Speaker, this bill must be opposed. And with that, I ask the House to think about these communities, do what's in their interest and oppose this bill. Yeah.